So let me get this going. Great. Well, good morning, everybody. And I am so excited that this week we don't have a live training, but we do have an interview. We have an interview with a specialist, Dr. Brenda Montecalvo. And she is an optometrist who specializes in eye issues, which she'll tell you about. And she has written a book, Visual Secrets for School Success. Read faster, write better, master math and spelling. So I know that this week we are talking all about reading, but we're going to be talking about some of these other topics as well down the road, math and these. So I'm so excited to have Brenda here for an interview. And welcome, Brenda.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate the invitation to be able to speak about one of my favorite subjects. So I thank you for contacting me and making this happen.
Yeah,
So,
well, I'm glad it could. I'm glad we can do this virtually via Zoom and capture it for everybody. So go ahead and tell me, Brenda, a little bit about you and what it is that you do.
so I'm an optometrist. My name is Dr. Brenda Montecalvo, and I've been an optometrist since 1985, so over 35 years. And I specialize in something called optometric vision therapy and also neurooptometry rehabilitation. So I work with a wide range of individuals that have most often 20/20 eyesight and no major eye disease, but they have a significant amount of visual processing problems. So they have a hard time keeping their place when they read. They get headaches or eye strain when they're reading, and that's usually because of a focusing problem, or their eyes don't work together well and the words float up off the page, or they might see double for just an instant. Most of those individuals that experience those types of things, they have 20/20 eyesight and they pass all of the visual school screenings, they pass their pediatrician screenings, and they then get misdiagnosed. And then they think it's something wrong with them when in fact it's the problem with their eyes sending the right message to their brain. So they really are real smart. It's just trying to help them learn to, number one, identify problems that they're having. And then there are some kids that actually have visual skills that they don't know how to learn or to use. And an example would be the other part we work in is we call visual thinking skills. So if you close your eyes, can you picture an ice cream cone? And if you can't, then when you're trying to teach your child a word on page 1, what happens is they forget it on page 3 and they have to sound it out again and again and again. What occurred is they didn't put it into their visual dictionary, which is the mid-temporal area of their brain, in order to recall it easily later on. And phonetics is good to start learning. However, it's a slower process and it has to go through the frontal lobe, which makes it more difficult and reduces automaticity of reading.
But more laborious.
Absolutely.
The phonetic sounding out. When we talked at the very first week that this group was in existence, we did a whole week of learning styles, and we talked about the visual learners. And I did mention to them developing the skill of creating mind pictures. So it's good to know that that is intricately connected with reading. That I find that interesting.
And that's called visualization.
Okay.
Being able to remember that later is called visual memory.
Okay.
And there's other perceptual skills like association and categorization and being able to visually construct how things are related. And there's closure, figure grounds. There's 60 visual skills important for learning that are not related to 20/20 eyesight.
Now, are these things that parents might be able to spot at home, or do they really need to be diagnosed by a specialist?
Well, it's really great if they start identifying things, but in order to get help, it's probably good. There's some individuals that are hard to identify. So there are common symptoms for some of these individuals, but the others that are avoiders. So if you have a person that's trying really hard to get by and make it happen, they often have more pain, eye strain, rubbing their eyes that can be red. The kids that are avoiders, they don't have the pain because they're not spending much time doing it. They're trying not to do it. And I often have kids in my exam room and I'll say, do you see 2 things when you read? Oh yeah, all the time. I had one little boy, I told that, and the brother on the floor says, don't you hate when that happens?
They
So
both were experiencing this
they
problem.
were, but you know, they didn't think that was abnormal. Nobody told them they weren't supposed to have double or blur. So you should never have double vision or blur when you're reading. So even asking your child, you know, when you're reading, do you ever see two? Does it ever blur out? Does it ever hurt your eyes? Do you lose your place when you read? Do you have to use your finger to keep your place? Those kinds of things are indicative of an eye problem that's affecting their process.
Do these problems, how do they differ from dyslexia? And do they often go hand in hand with dyslexia, or are they totally separate?
So we have patients that are diagnosed with dyslexia, and we have patients that are not. So the simple reversal situations of B's and D's and P's and Q's are typically a laterality directionality. So they don't have a visual construct of where they are in space and where anything else is. So the reason they flip the B's and D's and P's and Q's is because they can't remember if the ball is on the right or left of the stick, because they think right and left exists out there, not inside of them.
Hmm.
That's a very critical skill. It's a visual skill, and it looks like dyslexia. If that's the only identification, then definitely that can be something that can be helped and developed, and it doesn't have to be a permanent situation. Was for saw, on for no, reading like 532 versus 235. Those are usually a tracking problem because the eyes have accidentally tracked backwards and the brain
Mm.
saw it backwards, and so they recall it that way. So those two situations are definitely more visually related. If
Mhm.
you take a word and you mix it all up, you know, there's some dyslexia there. So dyslexia is kind of a broad subject. There's lots of different parts to it. And so we don't let that limit the patient's ability to help them get better. So depending upon the challenges they face, we know they can improve visual skills to offset the challenges that they're trying to use their vision a certain way in the classroom. So we work with patients with cerebral palsy, with brain injury, stroke that have significant problems, but we know that if we get vision working right, they're going to have improved function.
Hmm. So, what are some indicators for parents that a child might have one of these vision issues? What could they look for to even know if, I mean, you mentioned rubbing the eyes, pain, that kind of thing. But for these kids who have 20/20 vision and um, maybe aren't experiencing the more acute symptoms, are there little clues that parents could look for when their children are reading aloud or as they get older reading to themselves that we could tune in and say, maybe that's something I need to have checked out?
So first of all, and that's part of my book, is I wrote it, it's called The Trap. It refers to the trap, which is hours and hours of homework. So that's actually your first symptom. And the
Mm,
technique is we teach people with visual secrets how to improve their vision so it doesn't take hours. And
mm,
the third one is the treasure, and that's more time for fun, friends, and family. So what happens is school takes forever to get done. It takes forever to learn your spelling words. With my technique, you can learn spelling in 5 minutes, 20 words in 5 minutes.
oh, wow.
And so reading, we teach people how to read really fast so they have time to do other things and still have high comprehension. So poor comprehension, reversals of B's and D's and P's and Q's, losing your place when you read, rereading the same line over. We are really big advocates of silent reading versus out loud reading, asking questions for comprehension. So if your eyes don't work well together as a team, usually that affects comprehension. And often as the print gets smaller, these vision problems are increased because it's harder to keep your place. Figure ground is another big thing, not being able to find an object with a lot of background noise, like on the top of a desk. If there's your pencil and there's a lot of other things and they can't find the pencil, that's a figure ground. Closure would be you give part of an instruction and they have no idea what to do. And so you have to give a lot of details. And that's a visual closure problem. Don't like to do puzzles.
Interesting.
Don't like to do perceptual games. Those types of things are also early indicators of kids that have problems. Like, for example, math. We find that those children that don't count steps don't usually do well at math. So We know they haven't gained the concept that 1 is the same distance from 2 as 2 is to 3. So that's a spatial concept. And math is
Hmm.
judged based lots of different ways, which is a visual skill. And so those are just some tiny issues. And we always say that you should take your child every year to have their eyes examined. You'd go to the dentist twice a year, but why not your eyes? When what would you do without your eyes? I was listening to a podcast during the COVID stay at home, and they said, how much money would you take for your eyes to donate them to science? How
Most of
much
us wouldn't want to.
would you take? 5 million? Would you take 10 million? And nobody would. And yet nobody wants to spend a little bit of money for a comprehensive eye exam with an optometrist that can identify these problems. There's a group
Oh,
called College
sorry,
of
go ahead.
yeah, there's a group that's called College of Optometrists in Vision Development, COVD, and they have a whole list of people that specialize in this area. Now, there's a lot of different levels of success. Another really great Facebook page is Vision Therapy Parents Unite, and
Mm.
they have like 20,000 parents all over the world. They have lots of documentation, lots of research. It's a great resource to find people in your area that really do this vision therapy the right way to help kids be more successful.
As you're speaking, I have a son who I have two children who really struggled to learn to read, and one I really don't think was a vision issue, but the other we've just always struggled year after year, and I keep thinking, man, this has got to be something. But every time we take him into the optometrist, his vision checks out. Oh, it's great. I even did a cursory dyslexia. I went in and we did a cursory dyslexia scan or evaluation. That's the word. I don't think he's got that. And I'm like, what is this? There's
So
something going on. So
where do you live?
in Colorado.
Okay, so in Colorado, there are so many people that are so amazingly good at this. So
Wonderful.
it's one of the best states in the country for optometrists that specialize in vision therapy. So what we can do after we're off is you can let
Yeah,
me know
I
where
was gonna.
you've gone, and I can make sure you go to someone that can check all these parts, because that's the problem is a regular eye exam, make sure your eyes are healthy, which is important. Make sure you see 20/20 and that you don't
Mhm.
need eyesight glasses.
Mhm.
I think all those things are absolutely critical to begin with.
Sure.
However, if the exam is taking about 10 to 15 minutes, they did not look at anything else. If they dilated the eyes before they did the exam, there's no way they can check any of the visual skills that affect learning.
Mm.
In
So
my book,
for
there's a Q&A at
oh,
the very
good,
back of the book of what
excellent.
you ask the doctor. Did you do this? Did you
Do
do
you
this?
want to grab your book and show
Yeah,
it up
sure.
close, Brenda? Because not everybody on this group lives here in Colorado, where I live.
Yeah. So
So
this
there
is
we go, folks. And are there in the book I mean, you've said there are things that you give to say, check this, check that. Are there steps that we can do at home as well?
after you've had a comprehensive eye exam and you've determined that you have the visual skills you need to be able to do these activities,
Mhm.
then off you go. So there's a chapter on each subject: math, spelling, reading, handwriting, and composition. But they list the visual skills at the beginning, and only an optometrist will know if you've actually developed those skills or not. So
Okay.
it's kind of frustrating to a child to try to do something that they aren't prepared to do. And so
So go ahead.
that's why we always recommend at the beginning of the book, it tells you how to find an optometrist and how to ask the right questions, and be sure that your child's ready for these secrets so they can be successful for a lifetime.
Excellent. I'm going to make sure everyone, I will put in the information to the link to get Brenda's book, and I will also get the information and drop those links for the Facebook group she talked about, as well as the overarching organization to find good optometrists. So that'll be helpful for all of us. But any last things, Brenda, that you think we should know before we close off this interview?
So I do have a Vision Aces Facebook page, and I do list there's about 25 or 30 visual secrets that are little mini visual secrets that people can do, especially if you have little ones. like puzzles when they're tiny, stacking blocks. So lots of ways to develop vision early on. So lots of little tools, and there's a Dr. Brenda Montecalvo Facebook page, and there's a lot of different videos on there that help uh, parents get ideas on what they can do with their kids early on. So I appreciate again your
Yeah,
invitation, and I have
yeah.
a website too, BrendaMontecalvo.com, and on there are ways people can participate in more details. There is a 12-week step-by-step process in my book, but there's, if you want more guidance, I do
Mhm.
help individuals through the process so their child can be more successful. And I know you said like your other child doesn't have a vision problem, but so I would say I would be surprised if a person doesn't read well that they don't have a vision
Well,
problem.
she reads well now. She took off, and hers were other issues that we did get worked through.
Oh, good.
And she's grown and in nursing school and very successful and reading
Congratulations. The other thing
extremely
too,
difficult textbooks.
also to keep your eyes healthy, I know you're talking about COVID, homeschool. This is a really good tip for everyone. So when you set up your situation where you're training your kids and teaching them and doing learning, is make sure your computer is about 6 feet from a window. So
Okay.
like right now, mine's right here, and I have a window out there. It's about 6 feet. So when you look up, look away. I'm looking right over the top. You can still hear any type of video or listen to, but you're getting a vision break. And what you want to do is you want to look at something and think about it and have an emotional sense about it. So like, for example, if you see a red car, oh, wow, I love red cars. So that's enough of a visual break. Doesn't have to be long, about 5 seconds, and then you come back. And so that will reduce the eye strain that everybody's experienced from all this extended work on the video or on the zooming and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Brenda. It was
Thank
so
you.
good to have you joining us, and
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it.